Hey, what's going on there, folks? Good afternoon, good morning to a few out here. It is the Earthmaster on this Wednesday, May 3rd, 2023, Friday right around the corner, so hang in there. It is, it's about 10:39 here along the west coast in the state of California. Latest quake looks like some movement into the California area, and the green flag also a 2.4 here into the Puerto Rico area. All right, let's get into it and see what's going on here across the global map from the USGS, showing last 24 hours of earthquake activity here listed on the map. We've got one earthquake up here into the Aleutian Trench with a 4.0 coming in just within the last hour. Looks like about 35 kilometers deep here into the subduction zone of the Pacific Plate to the south and the North American Plate to the north. A little bit of activity ramping up there. Alaska has been fairly quiet. Recently, it seems like the last couple of days been pretty quiet. Maybe getting a sign of some elevated activity up north and also up against the North American Plate and the Pacific Plate here to the east. Eastern portion of the plate. Southern California still showing some activity here at the Salton Sea area with a 1.5 coming in within the last hour. We're still seeing a little quake activity overnight down here into the El Centro area and the Mexicali region where, well, we've been kind of watching a swarm of activity, right? Down there off the Imperial Fault. Now, I'm going to go ahead and pull up the seismograph stations here. Make sure I got the most recent ones, which I do. These all update anyway. But the main seismograph I've been watching south of El Centro here is going to be this one. ELO, El Centro. The latest Webby quarter is going to be this one right here, and it still looks like it did kind of yesterday in our past couple updates with, well, earthquake activity, it looks like. And I just wanted to pull up another local station here nearby just to see if any of this activity is showing up. We're going to check this one out. It sits just to the west here of the swarming area that we've seen over the past few days there in Southern Cal. This one, CI Dre, is going to be the Desert Research Extended Center, the most recent Webby quarter here, showing what looks like seismograph readings as well, but at a distance. When we see a seismograph signature, we would look for these sharp, well-defined signatures indicating that the earthquake activity is very close in proximity to this seismograph station. Now, when they get distance away, it tends to look something like this, a little bit more drawn out, or the lines are a little bit thicker, not quite as spiky. So, it definitely still looks like some type of activity is occurring around this area of Southern California. Now, USGS only reporting a small amount of activity. Let me check this one out here. SGL, Signal Mountain, it looks like. This one's clear as a bell. I mean, hardly any readings at all. So, again, some of these earthquakes, though, that are showing up on the El Centro station look fairly small in relation to the location of this station and also just in general with the Webby quarter line. Looks like some very small microquake activity. So it may be just, generally happening around this station, with barely any signature showing up at a somewhat distant station there. So can continue to watch it. They are reporting a little bit. The USGS reporting a small amount of earthquake activity. We did have a 1.6 down there 6 o'clock this morning, and then last night a 2.1, and then more recently a 1.5 up here just off the Brawley seismic zone here, closer to the San Andreas Fault. Remember last week, the last few days here, we've had 3 separate swarms. Let me bring up the 7 days, all magnitudes here, and you guys can kind of see what I'm chatting about. Here's the main swarm area that started first. That area did see, it looks like a total of 178 earthquakes in the last 7 days. Most of that was confined to, I think it's the 30th and the 29th time frame. So quite a bit of activity stirring up, and during that time frame, we've seen a migration of a separate swarm up here north with this area, where the Ocotelo Wells area is. We've seen about 16 earthquakes. And then following that, we've seen another swarm up here around the Salton Sea. So all this activity kind of migrated north towards the San Andreas Fault. This area up here did see a 4-pointer, 4.3, couple 4.3s there, literally within minutes of each other. So it was a little concerning, seeing all these swarms kicking up here, migrating much closer to the southern end of the San Andreas Fault, where it is quiet for now. But still, with this activity kicking up here in these swarms, I wouldn't doubt it if we start to see a little bit of activity kick up once again there. There's a little bit of movement down into the Barrett Station. Also, Dinsmore showing a little spike of an earthquake around Northern California. But for whatever reason, I can't pull up any of these other seismographs on my live viewer, which is not good. But, oh well. I mean, we'll just have to look at these other seismographs that are recorded for information. Either way, activity still somewhat elevated down there in Southern Cal, up here into a separate swarming north of the Ridgecrest area, near the Little Lake area. Seen about 28 earthquakes here in the last 24 hours. Some of that movement from this morning as well. Looks like did kick up a 3.1 in the mix there around the White Hills area, the Coso Basin. A lot of older volcanic areas out here with the Coso volcanic range just sitting up to the north. A quick glance at the satellite view out here shows a lot of desert. Quite a bit of desert out here. All this activity occurring well below the surface, though, at about 9 to 10 kilometers deep. All right, it's back out of here. So still, like I said, still a little bit of elevated activity in Southern Cal today. Northern California, well, doesn't look like a whole lot showing up here. Last one was a 1.7 about an hour or so ago. But also, as I noted here, let me find that. Looks like there's a little blip of an earthquake there around the Dinsmore area. That's going to be within this vicinity of Northern Cal. Down here into the Clear Lake Volcanic Field, Cobb Mountain area. These are hydrothermal operation plants in full swing. Got to zoom in closer to see what's really going on. A lot of steam out here. There's a whole process involved by injecting raw sewage below into the heated material well below the surface to create some power, some energy. And looks like this activity is occurring today on an elevated level. Pacific Northwest, relatively quiet. One earthquake outside of Mount Rainier from yesterday, 2.1. Into Nevada area, did have this earthquake outside of Eureka yesterday, 3.3. No further movement, though, noted in that area. A little bit of activity stretching up against the mountain range here outside of the, it's kind of north of Cedar City area, Utah. Getting a little bit of activity kicking up there today and yesterday. Yellowstone doesn't look like too much activity kicking up, but we will check that. This was not working last night, this website, and it looks like it's not working again today. So for that matter, we're going to go over to the University of Utah, which is the official page here. That was weird. But see, that makes me a little suspicious when pages hang up like that. Makes me think it's some type of trap in the World Wide Web. All right, here is the seismographs here across Yellowstone, just on a different view. Let me blow this up here a little bit so you guys can see a little bit more detail. And it looks like USGS is reporting a little bit of activity up here towards the Hebgen Lake and West Yellowstone area. So we'll go ahead and zoom in here to this region, see what we have. Let me bring this up here. There's that activity they're discussing, that little earthquake. So it doesn't look like there's too much happening there. across the Yellowstone area. Just a little bit of movement as noted here on the graph. Looks like a 1.4, the largest. Alrighty, Texas and Oklahoma. Let's see what we got out here in Oklahoma area. A little swarm outside of Davis, next to the Arbuckle Mountains. See what we have. There's definitely some fault systems that run up here across the mountain range, but I'm looking for any type of pumping operations out here, and I'm really not seeing it. It looks like a farmhouse out here. So it may be tectonic related, fault related. A glance here at the U.S. hazard map shows it within that zone of some fault systems that run out here through Oklahoma. But just a little bit of activity kicking off there today. Nothing major going on across the eastern portion of the country for now. Let's see here. What else we got? Middle America Trench showing some elevated activity today with a couple fours. Down into the South America region, had some activity. Overnight, it looks like we had that, well, this is from yesterday, 5.0 into the Peru area, portion of the Peru-Chile Trench. And getting a little swarm down into the Chile area with some 2s and 3s kicking off. Nothing going on across the Atlantic. Over here into the Turkey area, they're seeing a few more 4s today, it looks like, including a 2.6 listed up here on the map. Over into the eastern Afghanistan region, this looks like some older movement. See if I can't fix my voice a little bit here. Definitely a change in the weather. We went from mid and upper 90s last week to cold and rainy and 62 degrees over the past couple days. So a little change in the weather out here, which is nice. I'm definitely not complaining. Java Trench here showing some 3s across the area. Also 4.3, older movement quake there from yesterday. But we are getting some deeper movement quakes here across the Java Trench. More specifically around the Sumatra area, it looks like. So we'll watch this region here for some further activity. Pretty good cluster of movement there yesterday across this area listed on the map. As you can see, most of this here is from yesterday. Bunch of 5s. One after midnight, 4.8, way up into the, well, just shy of the Izu Trench. Very shallow earthquake here prior to the subduction zone. See what we got over here. That's that Turkey area coming in. Turkey earthquake coming in, 5.0. That's kind of a larger one than what these. Well, looks like that's Greece down here. Let's see, 30 days of activity, 4.5 and above. This is about the largest aftershock they've seen in at least a month in this area. Of course, they do get quite a bit of aftershock activity in the lower range, but this is somewhat of an elevated aftershock for the Turkey area, which is possible, right? Obviously, they had those large earthquakes here a couple months back. As time goes on, there's less and less earthquake activity, aftershock movement, but there's always the occasional elevated one that tends to pop up, and that's very typical across any major fault system there. Any major plate boundary. All right, let's see what else we got going on into the Japan area. Not a whole lot. Pretty quiet here across the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench. There's a 4.4 on the Aleutian Trench here. Fairly new earthquake, as I mentioned. That, well, USGS reporting that as a 4.0. EMSE reporting a 4.4. So that's a little on the odd side. All right, but let me refresh that, see if they've changed it. It doesn't look like it. Either way, a little bit of activity occurring here along the Aleutian Trench today. Big Island of Hawaii, most of the movement here offshore off the coast of Pahala. Nothing major changing up here across the Kilauea volcano. Let's give a quick glance here at the hazard notification system. We'll see what's going on here across the HVO. This was put out yesterday, so they haven't put out even a new update yet, but I guarantee you it's going to state the same thing as it stated yesterday and the days before. All right, space weather activity is ramping up here. Let me bring up a space weather model from the solarham.net site. We had a bunch of M flares popping off within a short amount of time of each other overnight. All these spikes here reaching into the M flare category. I'm counting, looks like at least 5 decent sized flares there. And all that activity came from a sunspot up here we're kind of watching last night, 3293. It still harbors some potential here for some further flaring, along with a few other sunspots in the vicinity. Definitely rapid type of activity. Looks like they counted 4 up here, but I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 flares reaching there into the M flare category. Looks like the largest was an M7.2, again from sunspot region 3293. It did create a brief R2 level radio blackout on the sunlit side of the Earth. Of course, we were sleeping over here in the States when that was happening. There is a continued threat from that sunspot, as mentioned. M flare possibility up to 50%. 99% chance, of course, for C flare. X flare remains somewhat elevated at 10% probability. And again, these sunspots are ramping up fairly nicely. Let's look at the latest magnetogram here. This one down here on the southwestern limb of the sun is departing, no longer hardly visible. So we're left on the visible disk here of the sun with quite a few sunspots approaching and rotating here into a more better view here for the Earth. Looks like our main region definitely going to be up here around this sunspot that has produced many M flares overnight. Also a fairly large regional sunspot coming around into a better perspective view here. Does look somewhat promising as well. But I think the main area we need to worry about here is this region here that's been popping like crazy. A bunch of M flares. So 3293, keep that in mind. I don't believe it produced any CME. Doesn't look like it according to the rapid M flare level activity that it produced earlier. No major changes to the aurora forecast here, and things are very, very minimal across the board for that activity. Let's see, he put out a little article here. The data is in for 2023, and we've seen another dip in both the average solar flux and sunspot numbers. A dip meaning that a decline. Despite this, the data still remains above the predicted levels for solar cycle 25. Looks like we are about due for a rebound, it seems. So solar cycle 25 is supposed to peak out around the June 2025 time period. As mentioned in this graph right here, you can kind of see about the summertime 2025, and then it will slowly go back down. So we are approaching that level, and over the past year or so, we've been above the predicted sunspot number and the solar flux index, meaning the energy. We were actually way ahead for a little bit, way ahead. And what Kevin's talking about here on the Solarham site is that dip in the number of sunspots and the energy that the sunspots produce here with the SFI has taken a major dip. But as you can see, trends happen, right? You get these little periods of uptick, and then kind of like the stock market. It's kind of like the stock market in a way. But we did have a fairly good uptick there for a little while in 2022, in the beginning of 2023. But notice that we've dropped fairly nicely. But definitely that should peak back up. Either way, I think we're still way ahead of a schedule, way ahead of the predicted solar cycle 25 activity. Either way, I think we're definitely gonna see plenty of more flares coming our way. All right, where is the Storm Prediction Center here for today? That's going to be the severe weather possibilities across, looks like mostly into extreme western Texas and New Mexico, although a marginal risk extends well into up into portions of Colorado and extreme southwest Kansas, with a portion of the panhandle there of Oklahoma included. Doesn't look like there's any threat for tornadoes today, less than 2%. The main deal is going to be some large hail down into, as you see, the 15% chance for severe weather. Odessa, Texas, Lovington, New Mexico area, it looks like, Andrews, Texas area, all have a probability there of seeing some large hail. That's going to be the main threat today, along with a little bit of wind from these thunderstorms. But either way, this area does need some rain. That's for sure. Day 2 tomorrow looks like a more wide area of weather concerns. Now, I think they're going to, this is a tornado possibility here, mostly into Oklahoma and also southern Kansas, getting in on a little bit of activity. Now, they're probably going to add an enhanced level depending on how this plays out throughout the day, if they update the enhanced area up here for that tornado potential. Right now, it's only in the slight category, but that extends well into Texas, covers a good portion of Oklahoma, and again, the southern area of Kansas. There's that tornado potential for tomorrow. Wind event, fairly good possibility of seeing some damaging winds as well. But the main threat is going to be some very large hail. Very large. Across portions of, looks like Oklahoma, southern Kansas, into the hatched area. That's going to be the dashed line. They have a probability, a 10% or greater probability of seeing 2-inch diameter hail or larger within 25 miles of a point. So that includes Abilene, San Angelo, Del Rio, Eagle Pass, Caryville, Texas area. But also up into portions of Oklahoma. That's also in the hatched area. Looks like maybe Woodward area. Possibly up to the Pratt, Kansas area. Looks like it may be extending up that far. So, yeah, just a heads up for severe weather tomorrow. And then after that, looks like the activity dies off slightly with only a marginal risk out here across a portion of central Texas, Austin area, Memphis, Tennessee, also getting in on some activity. Continue to watch that as it plays out. All right, folks, have a good day. Hope everyone enjoys whatever kind of weather they're having. It's a lot cooler here in California than we're used to this time of year, which is good. I'm not complaining. But I'll take these ups and downs in the heat and the cool temperatures over continued 100-degree temperatures any day. Let me tell you. All right, folks, have a good day. We'll catch you guys back here sometime tonight. Take care, everyone.